Alright, so now that this run doesn't matter anymore, let me rant about fucking Fall Guys. So, Fall Guys, we've already seen how disappointing their fucking releases were. So, Season 1 releases, and that's when the game goes popular. That's when the game releases. With Season 1, obviously. And, it was a massive success. Lots of people were playing it, but people quickly burnt out. Because, first of all, the game was very unpolished. The game had lots of issues. JXC made an interesting video about the whole ordeal. It has some inaccuracies, some problems, but in general it's pretty accurate. It has really unbalanced gameplay. Like, it doesn't know where to go. It has an identity crisis, although, like, JXC didn't really remark on that, but that's what I would say. It has, like, no idea where it wants to go. Because it tries to be competitive while trying to be casual at the same time. Like, you can't really stretch yourself both ways, right? But despite that, even despite those issues, despite the hackers and stuff, people still liked it. And in September, they released a mid-season update when they fixed the hacking issue by introducing an anti-cheat. Now, at that point, in my opinion, most people who liked Fall Guys already didn't care about it. For whatever reason, like, most people already didn't know that the hackers were fixed. Because you could tell, because when people spoke about Fall Guys, people were like, haha, are you gonna play with hackers again? Wanna do that? That's what it felt like to me, but by the numbers, judging by the numbers were still really high at that point. So, October arrives, and they release Season 2. Now, at that point, the whole concept of seasons was new. Like, I had no clue what they would release for seasons. No clue that there would be new stuff every season. But when we found out, it was cool. But at the same time, we also thought that, like, it wasn't that much, you know? It took them a few months, and they only released... They released, like, a few maps, and for the mainstream, it was too slow. At that point, the mainstream really started to drop off. And because mainly the mainstream, like, has no patience, which is fine. Which is fine because, like, it doesn't matter. You shouldn't appease the mainstream. I think appeasing the mainstream is actually, like, really bad for a game. If your game goes mainstream, if my game went mainstream, it honestly suck because, like, mainstream games, they are upheld to such a massive standard that most people end up being doomer-pilled. And most of the time, in our modern age, people put such high expectations for games that not only do they not, like, hit, but most AAA titles don't even, like, satisfy the bare minimum. Which is honestly, like, it's good that it fell out of mainstream, but it started becoming considered a dead game at that point. Because that's how big-brained the mainstream is. Anyway, Season 2 releases, and at that point, I still continue playing it, but most of the mainstream stops playing it. And then they come out with Season 3, which really disappointed me. In Season 3, they came out... Season 3 really disappointed me because, like, they released 7 new rounds, which was the biggest they've ever released for a season. So 2 of those new games were actually just team games. So, like, everyone hates team games, and it's been very well known that people hate team games. The other 2 maps were new finals, and those 2 finals were really unoriginal. One of them was literally a final version of Rollout. Like, come on, could you not come up with something original? And another one was a remake or a remix of fucking Hexagon. It was Thin Ice, which is, again, unoriginal. Like, people really liked Hexagon, but the actual Fall Guys core base well, actually, the competitive players most like Jump Showdown because it's the most competitive and the most skill-requiring round. And I think it's still, like, the case. Despite that, that was what came out, and that personally really disappointed me. In fact, it disappointed me so much that I quit the game at that point. Towards the end of the season, I stopped playing the game. But I still completed the new, like, season, you know? I still completed the season rank. I got level, like, 40, I think it was at the time. And it was all good and dandy. Then arrives Season 4. And what happened with Season 4 I actually never expected. Now, I should mention that Season 4, it was still plagued with lots of issues. Lots of issues. When Season 4 came out, it was a massively unpolished mess. In true Mediatonic fashion, it was, like, full of bugs. I remember, like, randomly you would get, like, the fucking matchmaking crash while you were looking for teammates. And there were other bugs. It was so long ago that I don't exactly remember. But it was really unpolished and had lots of bugs. But despite that, it also added the most content in the game. It added squads modes, daily fucking challenges, 7 new rounds, and also a new theme that, in my opinion, like, took the most effort. It was the most interesting theme. It was like a futuristic theme set in a, like, an 80s style. And in my opinion, that was a really good season. It was the best season of Fall Guys, in my opinion. So, Season 4, despite being flawed, despite still releasing 2 new team games, it felt really like, it felt like a breath of fresh air for me. I really enjoyed it. And that's why Season 4 was my most played season. During Season 4, this is like personal, but I developed my own tracker for Fall Guys. Mainly because I wanted to track stats. I was disappointed that they couldn't introduce stats for so many seasons, so I decided to create a tracker for myself. And that was a success. How many days do you think they should complete the crossplay thing? I think it would have been done, like... Okay, so I understand, like, the fact that it's hard to implement, because on paper it is hard. However, in Season 4.5, they introduced... Season 4.5 took a while to come out, but Season 4.5 was also the best mid-season update of any game. It added 2 new rounds, even though one of them sucks, which is Button Bashers. Button Bashers sucks. But it was still a great update. It added crossplay. They added the ability for you to play with PlayStation players. That is like the hardest hurdle you need to achieve to make crossplay, in my opinion. That was the hardest hurdle. Well, actually, it's not the hardest hurdle, but it was one of the 2 hard hurdles, I think. The other hard hurdle was to find a platform where you could connect those two, which for them ended up being Epic Games. Because for crossplay, you would need to, like, create your own friends list system, like your maybe chats, like a more advanced party system, and Fall Guys already had a party system. You just needed a way to introduce friends lists and ways for people to address each other. But Fall Guys was lucky in this case because they had the help of Epic Games. They literally used up their launcher, which uses their whole service, adds the support for, like, fucking, it adds the support for friends, it handles everything with that, regarding that nature, which made it really easy for Mediatonic, because they didn't have to implement a new, like, friend system and shit. They just had to use someone else's work. Let me interject for a bit during editing to explain one more fact that's pretty interesting and shows how much effort went into the crossplay. Before playing Fall Guys, I actually played Rocket League quite a bit, and I've seen Rocket League get merged into Epic Games so that you could actually play with people from PlayStation 4. This allowed you to add them to your friends list, which the team behind Rocket League actually implemented into the game. The friends list actually became a thing in the game. They had to add a new UI, add new functionality, add, like, pop-ups that could work well. This took effort. This actually took effort. And yeah, it took them weeks to make it, but at the same time, while they were working it, they had pretty regular updates. They had new content coming in, they had new seasons, and other shit. Now, let's take a look at Fall Guys. Fall Guys took 3 months of nothing, no work being done except crossplay, and all they could do is introduce a friends list pop-up that is literally just made by Epic Games. It is not made by Mediatonic, it's made by Epic Games, as you can see on the screenshot from Zardium's stream on Fall Guys. That is such a lazy solution that I can't understand how the fuck you could take 3 months to implement this little pop-up because we already had cross progression. We already had cross play. They just didn't have cross party at the time. But this update that did introduce cross party just introduced a fucking menu. And it took them 3 months for this. Dude, in my opinion, this would at most take 2 weeks to implement as a developer. I mean, I'm not like super experienced as a developer, but I know how I do programming. And this shit shouldn't be that hard for a company of 200 employees. So, which is why when they came out with like this change that you had to link an Epic Games account, and that was it for Season 6, I was disappointed as fuck. Like, what the fuck? You just used other people's work. You guys are so fucking lazy, and it took you so long too. It took you multiple months. Yet, regardless, that was all that came out in Season 6. Including some rounds, which was less than in like Season 4. For Season 4, they took 3 months to create seven maps. It took them 3 months to create 7 maps for Season 4. But for Season 6, it took them like 4 months, or even almost 5 months. I think it was 4.5 months. 4.5 months to add just 5 maps. And it was also becoming funny that in the release trailer of season 6, like there was a dedicated section in their like announcement trailer about a new map that is planned that they aren't even releasing yet. Like they're showing off maps that aren't even like ready for release, that they're only planning to work on. Like what the fuck? The game I'm talking about here is called Sweet Thieves. This was a new so-called round archetype that was going to release, but it was first announced during the Season 6 launch livestream. Towards the end of the livestream, they showed a trailer that they decided to create for a game that wasn't even created. They stooped so low that in order to generate hype for their like shit that they even managed to create, they have to make trailers for something that is still planned to release. So anyway, when this new update with cross-platform parties released, they said that Sweet Thieves is coming very soon, but it wasn't clear if it already came out. I asked my friend Zardium, who played the game, to tell me if he actually encountered the game. He played squad shows, so maybe he couldn't, but he told me that he did not see the game at all. And on top of that, I looked in the Fall Guys Discord server, and people there never really talked about playing Sweet Thieves. I never saw any screenshots or captures of the game. I only saw people glamorizing over a splash image randomly showing up in the menu while loading the next round. I'm guessing that the round was already added to the game, but they're hiding it for some reason? Why? Who do they think cares? Anyway, another weird thing about this is the fact that it seems to be a team game. It's just a team game. The interesting part about this is, on the release of Season 5, they said that they would try to no longer make team games. And it kind of answers the question on why they tried to do this in the first place. Why they tried to create a new archetype of seemingly just a single map. It's simple. They want to hide the fact that it's a team game. They want to add more team games while hiding that same fact. So honest, Mediatonic. Anyway, this whole communication is terrible. I don't understand whether it's in the game. I assume it is now after researching it a bit. During the livestream though, I didn't really know that. So I ranted assuming that the whole update was just cross parties. Anyway, further down the rant, I'm gonna kind of get derailed because I'm playing a game and I was kind of focused on that too. So sorry for that, I didn't finish my story with seasons, but in general, Season 5 was kind of disappointing to me. Season 6 was super disappointing to me, and the season when I stopped playing Fall Guys. I still haven't completed the season pass for Season 6. You are a 200 employee fucking company, and you can't even like... Your standard is gone. You guys are making maps slower than ever. Why? And on top of it, yeah, just like you mentioned, Zardium, the fucking Switch and Xbox release was delayed. we've seen the announcement of the Switch release. It was announced. We've seen it on, what is it called? It was announced on the Nintendo Switch Direct, where everyone's reaction was like, oh my god, that game, oh my god. And they said that it would come out 2021 summer. And then it was delayed. And now we have no news about it. And the thing is, you need to know that Fall Guys uses the Unity engine. And Unity engine supports building for the Nintendo Switch. So all you really have to do to add compatibility is you need to make sure that all the like platform specific things are worked out, and then you're good. You're good afterwards. But it's taking them, they still haven't said anything about it. It's still taking them so long to do it, despite the fact that it's like actually a lot easier because they're using the Unity engine. This is why it's also surprising for it to take long for them to release on Linux and like Mac. I understand that they don't release on Linux because no one plays on Linux, but on Mac it should also be easy because, again, Unity engine supports you to build for Mac. Do you remember when I had my what's up gameplay helper? I built that for Mac and it worked very well for Mac users. I didn't have to do that much work. Like, there was no problem for Mac users. Despite that, it's being very hard for fucking Mediatonic. Which again begs the question, why? What's going on at Mediatonic? Yes, they are lazy, but I also think that there's something wrong, like, internally. Like, something is going on. Something happened. You know? Because, like, it really doesn't explain why a 200-employee company takes so long to develop shit. Well, the thing is, I played Crab Game, and I found it fun, and I think Crab Game is a competitor to Fall Guys, because it is, like, pretty much the same format. Yeah, many people forgot about it, which is understandable. Thing is, right, with Among Us at least, I understand why it took the developers so long to introduce the things they've done. Because they are a small team, and they never wanted to increase it. And people were like, why the fuck did you not want to increase your team? But I understand why. We know what happened with QuizUp, that it died and got so bad because they tried to increase their team really massively. They couldn't handle the bureaucratics of a large team, and because of that, like, it was a lesson that you shouldn't increase that massively. Like, you shouldn't hire so many employees, because it might not always be a bad thing. It's actually a good thing that when you're a small company, because you still retain a lot of a personality and the creativity of the original, like, projects. However, with Fall Guys, the company was already massive. The company was, like, really massive. Did you know that the company of Among Us has less than 10 people? Yeah, they have less than 10 people, and people complained. And people are like, why the fuck did they not hire more people? But at the end of the day, they still made something. They made new roles, they made new maps. Well, it's just one map. And they were kind of slow, but I don't blame them. Like, as far as I know, we know that Among Us, when it released, it was not like... The developers were already done with it. Like, they didn't want to support it further. And, like, money isn't the best motivator. It's just money. It's like, great, money is awesome, but you wouldn't want to spend years working on a game. Like, it doesn't give you happiness working on something. So at least it's understandable. But despite that, they still added stuff. And it added the replayability to the game. But with Fall Guys, like, the team was massive. And it's just, there must be a reason why we're always so, like, slow.